All right. So, welcome to another episode of Chit Chat and Chill. This episode, we're going to talk about COVID, all things COVID, living with COVID right now in 2022, and how it's evolved, and the mandates and the vaccine, quote unquote vaccine, if you call it that, um, and just how people are perceiving it. Um, Last year versus now, how it's affecting our lives, just kind of an update on it. We've talked about it in the past, but we want to just give our updates based on recent data and recent thoughts. So, with that, I will jump right in. Um, and I'll start with a question that Peter you posed earlier. Um, how have you guys' thoughts changed on COVID from the beginning, March 2020, to the beginning of the lockdowns to now? Who wants to start? Anybody?
And video has been removed.
You are so stupid. Hashtag
Yeah, I'll start. I think I've been very skeptical of everything from the very beginning, um, and uh, I think it's really good. I like seeing right now a lot of other people that were on the fence. All the data has all shown this was all a scam from the beginning. It was all about power. It was all about power and more money. Everything that they were doing from the very beginning was testing to see how much money they can get off of us and how much power they can take and how willingly people will give that up for this false sense of security. The false sense of security that they were never going to provide because they couldn't provide it. They had zero control and they were never going to have any control. So I'm talking about from the federal government down to the state. So I think it's finally here where more people are starting to wake up, and a lot of people that they censored from the very beginning that were saying a lot of the same stuff, like, hey, let's take a step back. Let's look at what's real and what's not real and stop just, living in fear. All those people were discredited. They were taken off. They were deplatformed. They couldn't earn a living. It was pretty pathetic. But a lot of these same people, or a lot of the people that were calling them conspiracy theorists, are now saying the exact same thing. They're saying the exact same thing because they built this model of fear and they built this giant train and they cannot stop it. And they need it stopped because they need people to get back to work. And they can't stop the damn thing.
It's hurting our economy now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, our economy's been hurting all along. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been scary to watch. It's been really
they
scary.
They didn't care about the economy being hurt because they're pushing out so much of these federal funds, which is really more money that we don't have, but that we issue to people. And there's not big enough appetite to keep that going. And all of that money is stopped from.
But to be fair, back in 2020, the world stopped, right? We're trying to assess what's going on. This is an epidemic. How bad is this? And so when the world stopped, I think that extra money was helpful in a lot of families' pockets. People started to get laid off because businesses were shut down due to the mandates. And so how do you balance that? I think we had to do something from a government perspective to provide for those families who were all of a sudden getting laid off, all of a sudden losing their jobs. So I don't disagree with what was going on in 2020. It just was like really rough. And I don't think we stopped to reassess enough. I think it was a lot more decisions made based on fear than logic. And that's what was troubling.
So I think.
And I agree with the need for the initial help, because they made the decision to stop everything and shut all this stuff down. So I agree with the initial, but from there, every decision that was made, it was not a pure intention decision. They knew, and this is just, they knew, hey, wait a minute, I can get paid to sit at home. I can get paid to not go at work. I can get paid more to do nothing.
Well, we all know that that's a scary.
That's what they did, and that's exactly what happened. So it went from just a little bit to tide people over to getting people hooked on that federal dollars, which so many people have scammed for generations and generations. You look at the welfare system, whether you want to call it corporate, whether you want to call it for the poor, it doesn't really matter. Everybody starts scamming that system, and all of a sudden, more people that were never really on that or never needed that, all of a sudden was like, oh, wait a minute, I get money here, I get money here.
Yeah, well, some people were getting paid more on unemployment than they were
Yeah.
at their jobs, so there was no incentive to go back to work.
Yep.
Santino, sorry, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I don't even remember. It had to do with money. It'll come back. It'll come back to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It had to do with money.
Oh, I was just gonna say I don't think anybody I don't think anyone contends that it was useful for its time. It just outlived its purpose, when it dragged on and on and on, and at least and initially, this whole COVID thing was you know one of the seven biblical plagues, the way they were trying to make this thing out to be. And for me it just became very clear that that's what it wasn't, and I understand the risk for some people and stuff, but
Right.
Are you telling me you missed the little tickers on all the news stations of all the COVID cases and all the deaths?
Yeah.
You miss all that?
Yeah, God.
So that was another issue with me for last year, was how it spread. When they started talking about the vaccine and how, okay, the vaccine is going to be this cure, and then it was like, when you get it, you shouldn't be able to spread it. Like, it was so clear that this vaccine was the answer. And then,
no, it wasn't. It was the scary Trump vaccine. We shouldn't get it.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot all about
it. In 2020, it was. I will not take that vaccine. I don't know what they're going to do with it. 100.
Yeah,
that's all of 2020.
And how did I forget about hydrochloroquine, and how just because he said it, all of a sudden it became this can't touch. Yeah. I don't even know what it is. Is it like a vitamin boost thing that they give out?
No, hydroxychloroquine is a malaria drug. It's taken by something like 100 million people every year, who take it like candy because malaria sucks. We've been dealing with malaria as a population for 100,000 years. And malaria is scary. Here's the thing. We talk about COVID. Malaria will mess you up. Malaria will kill you. And they have an over-the-counter drug that people have been taking for 70 years that all of a sudden was the worst, most poisonous thing you could possibly take.
That was unreal.
I tell that to people. I had to take that drug when I went to Thailand in 2019.
They did the same thing with that what Joe Rogan was talking about, what he took with it. Oh, he wants people to take horse dewormer, and those freaking morons.
That was one of the purposes of it. And there were many uses for what he took. Well, I can't think of what it was called.
Ivermectin. I don't remember the name.
Ivermectin.
Yeah, something like
But yeah, there's many uses for it. And of course, they picked the weirdest one. It's a horse dewormer. Yeah. Okay, well,
it's another drug that's anti-parasitic. It's taken across the world.
The person
for some people it works. It's not for everyone. It's just
the person that made that got a Nobel Peace Prize for that.
Yeah, in that case, I don't want anybody to ever take penicillin, amoxicillin, or any of that stuff if they get a tapeworm.
Yep.
Because it's the same medicine they're going to give to a dog or a cat or a horse if they get a tapeworm. They're going to get the same thing. It's just going to be a scaled down version of it, but it's going to be the same drug. So, in that case, don't ever take penicillin ever again.
So. And what killed me about that whole Trump, is it called hydroxychloroquine or hydrochloroquine? I can't remember.
It's hydroxychloroquine.
Whatever, we know what it is, or everyone knows the word, because it was you couldn't even say the word without getting attacked. But when you think back to when he said it, someone brought it up in a press conference and he was like, oh yeah, we've seen cases where that's worked. We're going to look more into it. He never said this is a treatment for it. It was so annoying because immediately I was just like, well, if this is a potential solution, then why aren't we looking at it? And even if it's not for everyone, I know what the drug is and what it does. Why shouldn't doctors be able to assess who to give it to?
Meanwhile, we're sitting here looking at all these tropical countries, and they're like, how the hell are they keeping their COVID cases low? Because they're all taking malaria drugs.
I didn't even think about that.
What's funny is what he was talking about, and what all these people are talking about, are therapeutics to help lessen the effects. That's exactly what this vaccine is. It's a fucking therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's not a vaccine. It's a therapeutic which we should have been attacking it through that, because they knew from day one you were never going to stop the damn spread. You need to learn how to do the treatment. But
I don't know if they knew from day one.
They knew it from day one.
I don't know if they knew that from day one.
If you look at all those little dickhead Fauci emails from the very beginning, that's exactly what they knew, because they all said it. The mask and all the stuff isn't going to work. The only thing that works are the N95. Nothing else works. Mm-hmm. Stopping the spread, washing your hands, blah, blah, blah. And they revised all of that. Everything they came out, they revised everything, every single thing, but they knew they were never going to stop the spread. Well, but what about you? Any changes in your take from the past almost 2 years?
I think I don't think I've ever was like afraid of it, but it has been different. I think before it was like, okay, stay in the house. I really didn't go out, didn't do anything, mask, all that stuff. And now it's like, it's inevitable. Everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to get it. You eventually, even if you do everything that everybody tells you to do, you're going to get it. I think so. Eventually, you'll get it, Peter.
And even vaccinated, though.
That's vaccinated, unvaccinated, it doesn't matter.
Triple boost, quadruple boost, boosted, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Apparently, this COVID shaming is real.
COVID shaming?
Yeah, this COVID shame is real. Like these it's like these people who like are super all into all these things, like all these mandates. They're all into this shit.
The 2 masks, the 3 masks.
Yeah, they're all into that, and then they somehow get COVID.
Well, and I agree.
And they feel like a shame, like they did something that they weren't supposed to do. Like, yo, that shit is nuts. I'm sorry, man.
That's what's so frustrating. Is I agree with you, Veronica.
Do we put so much of a stigma on like HIV at this point?
Any other thing, the flu, right?
Are you allowed to?
We used to get the flu and we would be at work. We'd be back at work. Like as soon as that like initial fever cleared up, we're back at work. Like we were working right next to each other.
I feel like in the you know in the from the 90s and under and below, like they would have been pulling all of us kids together. Like, hey, put them all together so they all get the COVID.
We wouldn't have had the Jordan's flu game. We wouldn't have had Jordan's flu game. We would have missed that iconic moment in sports history. Because somebody got the damn flu.
It's true.
We long for a day when we could see an NBA player play with COVID, I guess.
I could have played basketball with COVID, and I can't play basketball.
Well, apparently, with that whole Kyrie Irving situation, he can't even like enter the building in New York. So whatever. So it's just been nuts. I just feel like I agree with you, Veronica. We're all gonna get it. And if you're vaccinated, we know from the data how most people will react. Not over 90% of people are going to be okay if they get it and they're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, you have a higher chance of being hospitalized. But even then, your chance of survival, unless you have certain health conditions, is really high. And so I feel like I don't like how it's still being treated differently than the flu when it's very similar.
I'm gonna disagree with you on something you just said.
Okay.
The difference in vaccinated versus unvaccinated, I think the last one I saw, and I think you had brought up a New York study when we were talking about before. I think it was like a 57% were non-vaccinated, 43% were vaccinated. That numbers, because remember what happens after that shot. It's used, and even the head of all of these companies, the Pfizer, Moderna, they came out and said that those 2 shots does nothing for you after like 3 months. That booster shot does nothing. They tell you it does nothing for you. They're on.
Yeah, I forgot what the schedule is. It's like after like 7-8 months, like it's minimized down to about 30% or something like that.
It doesn't do anything for you. So that initial burst might, but after time, it really doesn't. It's not doing it. So that's what this. Oh well, if you're vaccinated, you're
Hence the booster.
So you're going to live off
within a year. So we're going to get a booster every 5 months.
Okay, but there are some people. There are some people who get the flu shot every year. Because
that's every year, not 4 times a year. But
the studies do show that it's like they were saying 6 to 9 months right now.
No,
and so if you're getting the flu shot every year, that's not.
The studies are bullshit because they still don't. They haven't finished doing the studies.
I agree. We're living in it right now. We are.
So what's the rush to pump all this shit in your body when they don't know what's in there, and it's airborne.
Okay.
It's a therapeutic. It's not going to do anything.
Because they want people to not be scared. It's just what I find so dumb about it. What I find dumb about it is that the people who are the most afraid of this are already fucking vaccinated. 100% of the people who are not 100% of the people who are not vaccinated are not afraid of this virus.
I agree with you.
They're not living in fear. Matter of fact, 100% these people are the people that you got to remind them to put on masks. You gotta, they violate every single mandate. They violate everything. Like, you go into a restaurant when it was like they're not supposed to have any like dine-in, and you go in the restaurant, and these are the people that are sitting in the restaurant eating.
Yep, with a picture of a vaccination card. That's
like they 100% are not afraid of this virus.
They're out living their lives, so we need to live ours.
I say that because of this.
Say that.
What's the end game?
Right.
So then what's the end game?
How do we move forward?
There's no way you're going to get these people to take that vaccine. They're not afraid of it.
Right.
Like they're not. And like I got my vaccine. I didn't want to get a vaccine. I got it for my wife. I'm like 150% certain that COVID, I would have dusted COVID off.
Okay, but let's talk about the hospitalizations, right? So that's a very real problem that we've heard across the board from the doctors and nurses who are living in that day to day. So New York State, this is specifically New York State. I personally am not aware of any like nationwide revision of numbers that we've seen from COVID. But New York State released their numbers on how many people were actually admitted last year and up to this year, the past 2 years, for COVID-related illness and put on ventilators, et cetera, and how many were just admitted and just so happened to have COVID. They came in through a car crash or they hit their head and they just so happened to have COVID. So 43% of people that were in New York State were admitted to hospitals with COVID and were put on ventilators and stuff. That's a lot of beds. It's still a lot of hospital beds. And I think the concern of a lot of the doctors and nurses that we know is those beds are taking up space from people who have your friend has a stroke and comes in. I can't treat them because
if it didn't collapse the system.
Beds, hold on a second. I have 43% of my beds taken up by just COVID patients. And like 90% of them are unvaccinated. So this is a real issue that's hitting our hospitals. And I think that's why people are trying to spread the vaccine, because it's like, and I still don't think it's a vaccine. I still think it's more of a flu shot type therapeutic, whatever you guys are talking about. But if we know it's going to reduce your chance of being hospitalized, and we know that what's in the vaccine is the mRNA stuff that's already in other treatments, it's not anything net new. Well, we think that's what they've told us. We don't know. Then I feel like that's the thing that's pushing people to be to say get vaccinated already.
So Shantae, let me ask you something. Okay. So of the people admitted for COVID, how many are vaccinated? How much?
I think the number was like 90-some% of. I need to look it up. Last time I looked it up, it was over 95% of people that were on ventilators were unvaccinated.
So is that the number for? Let me ask you a question though. You're saying that's the 2-year number?
Oh, you're talking about the skewed.
That changes quite a bit after the vaccine was rolled out. So they intentionally bullshit these numbers to make it sound scary. They've done the same thing from day one with the case counts, with the death totals, because everybody remembers when the death totals were bullshit because each hospital was getting paid. For every hospitalization with COVID, they were getting paid. For every death, they were getting paid. So you were dying with it, not because of it, and it was adding up those totals.
So numbers are skewed. For sure, numbers are skewed up. But it's a very real problem that we've seen, and we've had that point of view.
No,
the beds are being taken up, and the hospital deaths are up, and a lot of these people are unvaccinated.
I'm just thinking like, if we didn't overwhelm the hospital systems in the early days of this, when they didn't know what this was, when it was killing more people, because let's be honest, these new strains are not as deadly. Like that's real. So if they didn't overwhelm the hospitals then, what are the chances that they're going to overwhelm them now? When Trump sent that Navy medical ship to
New York.
New York Harbor.
Oh, right.
Right.
The Javelin Center.
And they
the Javelin
500
Center.
extra hospital beds. 500. And not a single one was used.
Same thing
Not
in
a single
Chicago.
one.
We converted in Chicago McCormick Place
Yep.
to an extra place to have beds, which is McCormick Place is a conference center, and I know we didn't use many, and they closed it down.
So, and if you're here's the other thing, right? So, a couple of things about these hospital numbers. If you're so worried about hospitalization, why the fuck are you firing people from not getting the shot? Why are you letting go? I think it was some 30% in New York. You let go of 30% because they refuse to get the shot. Then on top of that, now they're going around and telling people. Now they're telling people, if you have it, as long as you're asymptomatic, you can still come to work.
Yeah, so, that's bogus.
Because you don't have the people. So of course because the ICUs, the way the ICUs are set up, the ICU beds, they don't have the same amount of beds every day. The beds are determined about the number of workers they have working on the ICU. So the number always fluctuates. So if they don't have a ton of people, they'll move those nurses into a different department, lessening the ICU's capability because there's not about a number of workers most of the time. So if you've automatically sliced 30% of that whole people, guess what? You automatically have 30% less beds. So yes, you seem like you're overloaded. Well, you overloaded your own system. And the other thing they did right away, as we talked about, was they stopped all of the all of anything, any surgeries, the elective surgeries, which included hip surgeries. There was a lot of surgeries people needed where they stopped doing it. Well, as soon as they started those back up, of course, all of a sudden you're going to have less hospital beds available. And then you had a lot of people not going in for treatments because they were too terrified. So now all of a sudden they're super sick now because they were too scared to go in and get treatments. They're taking up more beds. And then you've got the suicide rates taking up the beds. You've got the drug overdoses taking up the beds, all caused by the push of fear.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that all of that goes together. And yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I know there's always another side, and I think that's what makes it so important to always be try to be logical and assess the data, because when they started mandating that people get vaccinated at work, knowing that unvaccinated or vaccinated, you're still spreading the virus, you're still getting the virus, it's not stopping you from calling off work. What are we doing here? Especially when the CDC now has lowered the has lowered the quarantine to 5 days, what do you guys think about that? The CDC lowered the quarantine from 10 to 5 days.
I find it funny because the day before they got an email from the head of, I believe it was Delta, one of those big companies.
Yes, it was Delta.
Was it Delta? Yes. They shot him an email, and the very next day they ran with it. But we can trust the CDC and the NIH, and we can trust the FDA. We can trust all those people. Yeah. They're not all.
No, I think it has a lot to do with going back to work, and I think this administration knows they shot themselves in the foot with this. And no, I'm serious. I think
it's true. Every time you get a symptom, you're out for 10 days.
And I think that's why they lowered that, because they knew that this Omicron had spread across the entire country. I mean, I bet you 100 million people got it in the last three weeks. I shit you not.
It's been.
I mean, everybody I know got that thing. Except for
everyone who saw Spider-Man, apparently.
I stand by. My Spider-Man theory is 100% true. I stand by. 25 million people in the theaters in 3 days. Super spreader event of the pandemic. The biggest super spreader event of the pandemic. Spider-Man.
Anyway, you were one of those people. Thanks a lot.
I was.
I still haven't seen that movie.
It's great. It's great. Go watch it. It's great. But where was I going with it? Yeah, so they knew that all these people got it over this holiday break, and they knew that a bunch of people were gonna get it over this holiday break, and they were probably like, shit, like a third of the country is not gonna be able to go back to work on January 3rd.
For 10 days. Yeah,
Well,
that's
what do you
why.
guys think
That's why
about
that
the
happened.
the OSHA mandate getting struck down?
Oh yeah,
OSHA
hilarious.
mandate. What was the
Yeah,
OSHA
so-
mandate? I didn't hear about that.
Justice Sotomayor was straight lying, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She
Okay,
was
wait,
straight
hold on. Back
lying,
up.
yo.
Back
So-
up for.
So
what
it
is-
was, remember the Biden mandate where if you have over 100 employees, you have to.
yes.
So that got struck down.
Yep.
Which it should have. I don't even know. But yeah, but that chick is in there just flat out lying, inflating the numbers. Saying,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
that there was 100,000 kids in hospitals. You
was like-
lie, you lie.
I
You
immediately
lie,
was
you
like-
lie, you lie.
That's not right.
Yeah.
And I don't even keep up
And
with the
she's
numbers like
Like,
that.
and you're a justice for life.
Yeah, and
Bro.
that's what. And she's making decisions, and she doesn't know basic facts. The fuck? That's an affirmative action hire right there.
Stop.
It's true.
Agree.
It's true.
Pedro.
It's true. Go back
Get it
to
together.
when she got on board. Go back to when she got on board. That's exactly what it was. If you remember when she got voted in, that's exactly what happened.
I don't know.
Sure. Whatever. Agree to disagree on how she made it there.
She told you. She
Well,
admitted it.
clearly she can't memorize basic facts. Clearly, 100,000 kids in the hospital. Like, you lie.
Yeah,
You're a
that
liar.
was messed up. That was not okay to say out loud. Come
So,
on.
I want to give Brandon some credit right now.
Who?
Brandon.
Brandon.
Oh, no.
Oh gosh.
I want to give him some credit right now.
So hold
He said-
on. Talk about what Brandon is.
Oh,
Yeah,
so you know the Let's Go
Brandon.
Brandon chat, which got a really bad. That's awesome.
OMG.
That's just too funny. So
So yeah, let Peter explain. Let's go,
So-
Brandon.
so the Let's Go Brandon thing. So and a whole bunch of sporting events, college events, and they were chanting "fuck Joe Biden" at all these events. It was everywhere, and it was at a NASCAR event. And the guy that was getting interviewed, his name was Brandon. So the lady that was doing the interview said, "Oh, they're chanting your name. Let's go, Brandon." They weren't. It was clear as day. So that's where it went from "fuck Joe Biden" to "let's go, Brandon." Remember, when they doing the Santa tracker, one of the parents that was on there said that "let's go, Brandon." He's like, "Yeah,"
yeah,
and then Biden
dude.
was like, "Yeah,"
To Joe Biden to his face,
and he went with it.
his
But
phone face.
so to give him credit though, he finally said something that I agree. When they were talking about the rise in numbers, he gets really frustrated and flustered, and he shits himself. But besides the point, so he goes and he says, what he wants to do. It's not a federal problem. It's a state issue, which he's 100% right, which what Trump said from pretty much day one. It is not a federal thing. They can't do any damn thing. They have zero power over the states. None. So it's not a federal issue. It's a state issue.
Gotta love that 9th and the 10th Amendment.
That's where it should have always been in the first place.
Right.
But he came out and said, I've got a plan. I know exactly what I'm going to do. But you don't hear the fact that more people have died with Biden on board than Trump did, even though Biden's the beneficiary of the Trump vaccine. But he was 100% right in saying it's not a federal issue. It's not. It's never been a federal issue. It's always been a state issue.
No, I agree with that.
Hey, what's up with all these lefty politicians vacationing in Florida over the last couple weeks? Even AOC got caught down there maskless.
Wow.
Maskless, hanging out in Florida, got caught maskless,
Rude.
gets called out for it, and then tries to accuse the Republicans of sexualizing her.
Yeah.
They're sexually obsessed with her.
Her tweets were they
are.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
Yes, exactly. She was there only. They have these sexual fantasies of me, and that's why they're attacking me.
Hey, Shantae, they're obsessed with me sexually.
Such a politician thing to say. If you want to go to Florida,
that's
go
a
to
her thing
Florida.
to say.
Just don't be a
Let her
hypocrite.
play her card. Shoot.
That's the only car she
Why not?
has. That's the
So?
only car she has.
So in a male-driven, whatever, fuck it.
No,
Play the
sorry.
game.
Hey,
if you
Play
get
the game.
criticized,
You want to play?
no, that's if you get criticized. So that everybody
Don't
that's ever criticized
vacation
Trump,
in Florida.
all those women
though.
just wanted to bang him. So is that what you're saying? So
Whatever.
wait, what?
Beto, you got
Well, we've had worse. We've
You got
had
a
worse
crush on Trump?
situations with male politicians. So whatever.
You're right.
That's her thing.
You're right.
That's her
And
thing.
then they had the you guys see the mayor of or the DA, the Soros backed DA from I think it was Baltimore. She got caught lying and funneling money, and she just bought 2 houses in Florida illegally. But yeah, so she just got indicted.
Pelosi's trying to buy a house or move to Florida. I think she bought a house in Florida. Pelosi.
Well,
why
maybe
why they all trying to go to the free state?
So
like
you know what?
Locked up.
So this does have something to do with COVID. It kind of slides off though. All these politicians that got really, really rich of buying all of these stocks, they bought it all. So they asked Pelosi, and they try to say, "Hey, how about none of you guys can buy the stock? Your spouse says." She said, "Absolutely not. We're not bringing that." Because I mean, she's worth a couple $100 million.
Why shouldn't they be able to buy it? There's some craziness like that.
What? Are you being serious?
It's a free market. She should.
It's
not when you're a politician.
You control it.
Dealing every
I swear I'm not joking. I think that's what she said. Peter, am I crazy?
I got you.
That's her response.
I'm
gonna look that up.
I thought that's what you were saying, since you know.
No, I want to say
she's making decisions that impacts if we buy it or not. I mean, sorry. If we
and don't get me wrong, it's not just her. It's all these snakes on both sides. It's not just a her thing, but she's making a killing. She does very well for herself.
All politicians are corrupt.
Here, I got it. We are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that. That was her response.
And you will be able to contradict that by just doing a tiny bit of research or a Google search on it's just so frustrating. Anyway, so I had brought up the 5-day to 10-day or 10-day to 5-day mandate thing about jobs. But so then, like, from you guys' experience of what you've heard, what have you seen about job impacts on the mandates? I know I've heard from a few friends and family that their companies are starting to mandate it. And if you don't have it, you're going to get fired and all these things. So, like, what have you guys heard around the mandates at work?
What mandates are you talking about?
Have you guys heard anything about companies like starting to mandate it where you have to be vaccinated to come to work?
No, you get
I have.
So there's a
push.
Happening. We've had a push with it where I work where you get like a $75 incentive if you have it. But there's no mandate for it.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't understand the mandate because, again, like, the only benefit I could see coming from that is that you don't quarantine for like a long period of time, but the quarantine's been dropped to 5 days, whether you're vaccinated or not. And so, like, what does it matter? What does it matter? I just don't understand. Like, if I'm vaccinated and you're not, what effect does it have on me other than as a society, the hospitals are like potentially going to be overrun?
Because these people can't face the fact that they were full of shit from the either they were full of shit from the very beginning.
I agree with this.
Or they can't admit they were wrong.
I agree with
it's one of those two, and they just can't do it.
And
I don't see another perspective. Either you knew everything you said was wrong from the very beginning, which I think most of them know that, and I think they bought into it. Some of them bought into it, and they just can't say, you know what, shit, we fucked up. Sorry, guys. Let's get back to normal.
Well, that's starting to happen now.
So I think how?
Because people are sick of being locked up. And
but so now they have vaccine mandates. Now they have vaccine mandates. You got to show your vaccine card, to go to restaurants and movie theaters and things like that. Like, is that
another
better?
thing that's bullshit.
Like, we got kicked out of a McDonald's because we didn't have our vaccine card.
What the?
I almost wanted to tell the poor lady. It's okay, cool, and let me see your green card. I didn't. I would have upset my wife,
right? But that's the thing, right? It's such a ridiculous thing that it should be compared to something as ridiculous.
I made a bit of a scene.
Yeah,
I called everybody commies. And again, commies. I called these commie politicians and called everybody in the restaurant who would agree with that they were commies.
Oh my god! You're attacking a person who's just doing their job. Like,
oh no! I made it very clear to the lady that I wasn't mad at her. I was like, oh no, it's not you.
I was about to say, I'm like, because if you're asking about,
I was like, it's your commie company and these commies that are running this country.
You're on TikTok somewhere for sure. Someone recorded your rant and I'm gonna look for it.
But
Um,
so I guess my question then is at one point, so like so the Bulls, right? You had to have the stuff to go to the Bulls game. I'm not going to anything because I don't have any of that crap, and I'm not getting any of that crap. You ain't putting that shit in my body. Regardless.
you already had it. If you've ever had COVID, you have antibodies. So
yeah, antibodies, yes, but not all the other stuff that's in there.
We don't
but
know.
Then,
we don't even know, and we
Right.
won't know for 85 years.
But
So-
think about how crazy this is. Go ahead, Pete.
Hold on. Yes. hold on.
So doesn't it? When does it start falling on the people? That it is mainly the people in the big cities, because you get out of the big city bubbles. Nobody lives like this. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
They don't give a fuck. They don't have their mask on. They don't give a shit.
Actually, we
It's the
spend
big
all of
cities.
our time outside of the county now because of this shit.
Yeah. So when does it fall on the people that live in the city to say, you know what? We're not going to this fucking Bulls game. Nobody shows up, and send a message to these people in power like, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to show up. Exactly. We're not going to show up. And all of a sudden you got an empty arena, which means you've got zero tax revenue coming in.
Do it. We should totally do it.
And-
go outside of Cook County if you're in Chicago.
That's what I do.
Go outside of the mandate area in whatever area
changed-
you're in.
We
Leave.
changed our movie
give 'em
night.
your
We changed our
business.
movie nights, because we always go to the movies every night, right? Or every Friday. We changed our movie night to Saturday because we specifically drive an hour away because we're not going to do it. And it's I think it's so ridiculous that we got asked to leave McDonald's for not having a vax card. We're both vaxxed.
Same.
We're both vaccinated.
It's not about being vaccinated. It's about the stupidity of it all.
Do people realize what this is? This is nuts.
Eating in restaurants in general where there are mandates in place is the dumbest fucking situation. You walk in, and if the place isn't super big, you have on your mask when you first walk in, and as soon as you sit down, you take it off because all of a sudden COVID can't get you just because you're sitting at a fucking table. All of a sudden you're immune. Those are the COVID rules. You can't get it while you're eating. And sitting right next to each other and talking and spitting into each other's faces. Somehow that's okay. But and we know vaccinated people are not more protected. We are still spreading it just as much as unvaccinated people. It makes no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I gave it to my dad. I gave him a haircut the day before I started getting symptoms. Oh, no. I mean, he's fine, but
yeah, no, that's the thing.
He's vaccinated. He's vaccine boosted.
So that's the thing, right? How do we move forward? We have to okay, you accidentally gave it to your dad. It's super contagious right now, this variant, but it's mild. So people are, it's almost the right time for people to start snapping out of it. I said.
And being let's everybody get it now
and be over with
this lame version
the fear of it. Because I legit know people who had Omicron and then the next, right after they recovered, we're right back to double and triple masks. And I'm like, you just had it. The odds of you getting it again this soon are so slim. Why are you scared to get it? They're scared to say the word COVID. It makes no sense. It's the fear, the irrational fear that's been put into people for the past 2 years is I can't get COVID. I can't get COVID. There's no rationality. Just get it. Just get it and be done with it. Odds are you'll be okay.
I always joke with my wife. Remember, there was that one lady during the Obama years that had she was one of those people that was exposed to Ebola. And they tried to make her quarantine, and she was like, "To hell with this!" And she went for a jog, and they made a big old media sensation over it because they show her jogging, and all these fucking police and everybody's surrounding her, running, keeping up with her because she's supposed to be quarantined because of her exposure to Ebola. And I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, we laughed at her. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that lady's a fucking hero. Yep. I'm sorry, but by today's standards, she was like, yeah, I might have Ebola, but you can't fucking make me sit in this damn house. Hero. Build a shrine to that woman. She was the first of her kind.
Well, so we're talking about fighting mandates and avoiding them and taking your tax dollars from these cities who are pushing this. And it's a lot of blue cities. And because in a lot of red cities, we're not seeing this. I mean, it's literally just don't bring it up. If you get sick,
COVID doesn't exist.
it's like COVID doesn't exist. If you get sick, it's probably COVID. That's fine. Just come back to school. No big deal. Come back to school when you're ready. Come back to work when you're ready. No, if you don't say anything, you don't report it. It didn't exist. It didn't happen. It's just like don't ask, don't tell in Florida and Texas. And so shoot, where was I going with that? Oh, but meanwhile, so we have that going on. We're kind of split in the US. Then you have the other extreme in Australia where you have these mandates that are so severe and they're not even being televised. They're being hidden.
Austria
protests. And in Europe, we have people who are protesting and being violently attacked by the police, and they're literally being quarantined. Even if they just contact traced, they're being quarantined. Like if their contact tracing shows that they were even close to someone who got COVID, they're like pulled into some weird camp where they're forced to stay in quarantine. It's insane. That's what's happening in Australia right now. No one's talking about, or in Europe, and no one's even talking about. That terrifies me.
And what did Australia infamously do, Pete?
They gave up all their guns.
They fucking did. They sure fucking did. They sure fucking did.
They gave up all their guns.
Yeah. Oh shit! How long has that been? Do we know?
It's
been a while. Okay, like over 10 years.
Because 100%. They ain't pulling nobody out of their homes to no camp if they got guns. Because you can't show up to nobody's home if they got guns.
You're gonna have Wacos everywhere if they try to do that shit.
Try to do that in America.
Well, but how scary is that? It's terrifying. But it's history repeating itself.
Wait, which part? People defending themselves or the government being stupid?
The government being stupid, the fact that it's not being talked about worldwide as something that's an issue and something of concern.
Well, do you know why it's not being talked about though?
No, let's talk about that.
Because it's a test study. It's a test study to these other world powers. They don't want it talked about because they want to see if it's effective so they can do the same shit with their people.
If they can push the Americans into submission, I'm scared for the rest of the world.
Yeah, because
you got to think about it like that, Shantae.
And you got
they can force us.
That was the bad part about people willingly giving up so much of their freedoms to people are crooks.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had the best interest.
Yeah. All of a sudden, everybody was listening to all these politicians that they complain and hate so much. All of a sudden, they're taking these people's words like it's the word of God.
I wonder
how many people done clown Pritzker's ass. Then all of a sudden, that dude comes out talking all this COVID stuff. They're like, "Oh my God, Pritzker, come save us!" Like, bro, like that dude, and then that homie goes and flies his family to Florida when everyone's supposed to be locked down. You guys remember that?
Yep.
You guys remember that? He flew his family to Florida.
And then they shut down all the sports except for his daughter was in equestrian, so they kept that open.
That's not suspicious.
Yeah. So
but you know what? They love that dude because he's locking everybody down and fighting against them downstate Republicans who are trying to keep this state free. Thank God, as Chicagoans, thank God we have those people downstate. Because if we didn't, Shantae, who knows what these blue state politicians will do to us? Like, who knows? Thank God we have those people downstate.
Yeah, but it's not just that. Like I said, we have full states that are just living their lives, and so as a country, hopefully we can fight back on.
It's really just a couple of states where it's really bad in, and it's the states where early on they got really aggressive with it, and the people didn't fight back enough. That's if you look at what happened in Wisconsin and Michigan, it was the same shit, except for the people of Wisconsin fought back and their Supreme Court said, no, you're doing too much. The people in Michigan didn't really fight back. So now they got that brought up there. And then you got New York. You see what the hellhole that is in California.
Yeah.
Would you take away most of them? Those are the ones that are really and in Illinois too, but it's mainly just Chicago. Everybody else, when you leave Chicago, you're fine. You do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep. And it's so crazy to see that shift of like, where you don't have to wear a mask. It's like, wait, what? Why?
Oh yeah, I'm heading down to like Peru, Illinois tomorrow.
Yeah. I live just outside of Chicago. I don't wear my mask anywhere. And if they ask,
do you own masks?
Yeah, I have to. But so like if they ask me, I'll be like, do you have one for me? You're a witness to that. If you got one for me, then they're okay. But if you're not gonna, if they're like, no, I'm good, and they're usually okay, and then you just
It's
go
so
about your
funny.
business.
Yeah, we went to eat recently at a non-mandate place, and Peter had to put on his mask. But it's so stupid to observe the okay, put on my mask, and then I sit down, take it off. What are we doing? What a waste of a mask.
Like watch this amazing thing. Watch this amazing thing. Boom! I don't have COVID anymore. Watch this.
And
watch
did you
this.
notice? And just because I didn't feel like fighting that day, did you notice where he grabbed the mask from out of the package?
No.
Right in the middle, where I would put my mouth and my nose. You see? Why the fuck are you touching the blue part? What the fuck is wrong with you? If it's so important for you to sit there and have me wear a mask, then have that shit individually, or so I can grab it off the end. Right. Why the fuck are you touching the middle blue part? But I didn't feel like fighting that day, so I just let that shit go. But
next time, bring your own.
I should have.
You know what this is.
Next time, don't bring me to a place where they ask me that.
Sorry, Santino. Yeah.
You know what this. You know what this is. This is the first step towards Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. This is the first step towards that.
Wait,
this idea, and I'm gonna sum it up with this. And I brought it up before. This idea that everybody has to be equal. So in the story, you get like, people who are exceptionally beautiful have to wear ugly masks to balance it out.
Got it.
People who are exceptionally athletic walk around with heavy weights and chains on them to even it out. That's what this is. Kurt Vonnegut is one of the all-time great, futurist writers. That's what this is.
So Vettel, let me ask you a question. So something came out and they said, hey, people are more attractive with a mask. Do you find people more attractive when they wear a mask?
Just the
ugly ones. You didn't see that new report?
Just the ugly ones.
That's the new angle they're pushing.
Just you, Peter. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Vettel, you're so sweet.
Stop laughing like that.
But that's the new angle they're pushing. Beautiful people wear masks. Keep wearing the mask.
I hate masks. I always take them off. I'm one of those people who, like, mom life, I'm like, pull up to the spot and I'm like, oh shit, I left my mask at home, and I'm like in my glove compartment searching for one that's like not even sanitized. Like, wipe it off, blow on it, don't even really put it on, kind of have it hanging on my chin and hope no one notices. Like, this is not sanitary. And my cloth mask does nothing. It's no N95 crap. I'm not spending money on that. I'm all right. I've been all right. I'm vaccinated. I'm doing all the stuff. And I don't want to wear a fucking mask. I hate them. I hate them so much.
But they did tell you, and I'm surprised they didn't keep their words by this. They did say if you got the shot, you wouldn't have to wear the mask anymore.
I know.
I'm really surprised that didn't last long.
And in Chicago, that's what happened for like 2 glorious months. I walked in. Everywhere I walked in, I was maskless, and everyone was still wearing masks.
How many people did you see still wearing that damn thing?
Everyone was still wearing.
Oh my God,
they were looking at me like
clowns.
I was nuts. Everywhere I went, they were looking at me like I was nuts.
What a bunch of clowns, man. And it was crazy because, like, I remember, like, being out of the city, like, after being vaxxed, nobody had their mask on. It was great. It was freedom. It was awesome. It was like everything was back to normal. And then I had to come back home.
We have to get back to that. Because, when you go other places and visit other places, no one's wearing their mask. And you don't wear your mask. And you come home fine. So what's the problem? On an airplane, in an airport, fine. And the last air flight I went on, when I got there, I was kind of hot from like running. And so I was like trying to eat. And man, I made that sandwich last like 40 minutes. Because I was like, look, I'm hot. I'm not about to cover my face. I just bought this sandwich. I was just sitting there. Every time the stewardess came, I said, I'm still eating.
I would have bought a supersized Coke from the airport McDonald's and just sipped on that thing for 4 fucking hours.
I'm drinking.
I haven't been.
It's empty. It's an empty cup. Just sip it.
So I haven't been on a flight in forever. But would it be possible? Like, I guess what I would probably do is I would just go in the bathroom for the whole flight until they tell you got to go back in. No.
I mean, if you get in the right away, it's going to be clean.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're sitting in there, you take the mask off.
And you have plenty of space in there if you're in there by yourself.
What's the big deal? I'm not saying you got to be
picking up a bathroom, jerk.
Well, am I wrong? Would I be a bad guy if I did that?
I just think it's stupid that for 40 minutes I could keep my mask off while I eat, but as soon as I'm done eating,
one of my
attacked.
nephews, I think this is hilarious. He's a little kid, right? One of my nephews goes to a restaurant, and before we even sit down, he asked the waiter if he could bring him water, right? And sits down, waiter brings her water right away because like he asked for it as soon as we got there, right? The kid was like, "Yeah, so I have to wear my mask." Think about that.
Oh,
That's what we're teaching.
So he didn't have to wear a mask. The dude
Not
ordered
okay.
water before even sitting down.
it's not okay.
It's not.
Also,
So-
an 8-year-old gamed your system.
Yeah, we have to shake this fear. We have to shake the fear of COVID so that we can stop wearing masks, so that we can tell people just, hey, if you're unvaccinated, here's what to expect. If you're vaccinated, here's what to expect, and just kind of move on with our lives.
I think we're past the point of no return.
You know what it is? You know how
Wait, as far as what? We're past the point.
I don't think the people who are scared can be convinced not to be scared.
Really?
Not anytime soon. I don't think so.
You've pushed on them for
watching
2 whole years.
I don't think so.
True. If you're watching this and you're scared, ask yourself why. If you're sitting next to an unvaccinated person, who cares?
Like, I mean, if you're sitting there scared, I'm gonna be honest. I have been living my life like COVID doesn't exist outside of work because I have to take my things I got to do at work. But outside of work, I live my life like COVID doesn't exist, and I've been doing that.
Yeah,
for almost a year now.
So, Peter, what were you gonna say? Sorry, I didn't
So
mean to cut you
a
off.
lot of times,
and I'm fat. I just want to throw it out there, people. I'm fat. Fat.
It's another discussion.
Medically obese.
Whole other discussion.
Got over COVID in 4 days. 4 days. I got that Trump version of COVID. Apparently, 4 days, people.
So you remember how before COVID, and people say you have to get outside of America, you have to travel the world, see everything different. What these people, these uber liberals, and these ridiculous cities need to do is go to rural America, and you see it completely different. Get out of your freaking little bubble, and nobody wants to go to Iowa, Eli. So
that's where all those politicians spend their time, bro.
Yeah, but if you get out, and you don't have to go far, you just go on a little road trip, 3 hours. There's plenty of places you can go, and you can see people just living their life, and they're happy, and they're content, and they're not worried, and they're not like shaking, like, oh my gosh, why are you standing next to me?
And here's the most important part that these liberals in these big blue cities cannot fathom. This is the biggest part, Shantae. And while they're doing that, they're leaving the blue counties the fuck alone. They're leaving them alone. They're not sitting there saying and pointing at Cook County and being like, hey, you guys need to live like us. Hey, you guys need to do this. They're not doing that. They're leaving them alone because that's all they want to be done. Left alone to live their lives away from stupid blue state politician influence. That's all they want.
Yeah, I dream of this. So sad.
I don't think all people.
The big move is going to happen. It's going to happen.
I don't think all people live the way you're describing. I know several people who are living their life happy, wearing their masks, having their shots, still doing what they want. They're not afraid, like freaking out if somebody coughs. It just, keep it moving. They're not miserable or scared. Yeah, maybe scared that they'll get it because they have children that they've seen go through all the process of having it. I know several people who have little people who aren't even a year old who have COVID and are hospitalized for almost 6 months. And, they're afraid for them. And it's for them. Because they can't fight the virus, but they're not stopping themselves from living their life in a sense.
Yeah, I know that there's people who have people at home who they have to protect. And those people, of course, always have to take more precautions, just in general, even before COVID. That's always an issue and a concern. But to your point, if they're sort of adjusting, then, if you're a healthy human who's been vaccinated, who's been boosted, who's still wearing 3 masks everywhere, why? Maybe just cut it down to the one and not be afraid to say COVID and not be afraid to tell everyone that you've had it, because if you had it, there's no shaming over here. Like, right? Like, okay, you've had it. So what? Embrace it. Just because you've had it, stop telling each other you've had COVID, and then one of them goes, "Ooh, you've had COVID. Like, ew, you're disgusting. Like, stay away from me." I've seen that, and it's so illogical. It makes no sense. If someone's had COVID, they have antibodies, and they're like, there's no difference between them and you and someone who's unvaccinated, vaccinated. We just have to learn to interact.
Meanwhile, they're raw dog and their grinder connect, you know. But hey, as long as they wear their mask while they're doing it.
Hey, if they're happy,
what's wrong with you?
Wasn't that a thing though, where they came out and
they said that
wear a mask.
Make sure you're wearing your mask while you're doing it.
The fuck?
But to protect yourself from COVID.
Yeah. That was a thing at one point.
Fuck pregnancy, fuck all of that. Make sure you protect yourself from COVID. Oh man.
No, but real talk, what's the end game? Like, at what point do you think people are saying that enough is enough? That's the issue, and that's the issue that I see. For me, it's like, we live with it. That's my end game. We live with it. It's endemic. It is endemic.
I agree. Right? We live with it, and I think we have to talk about it more.
The way these politicians are acting, the way some of these people, like just regular citizens, are acting, is the goal here zero COVID infections?
Let me tell you when it ends.
No.
As soon as they arrest that little bitch Fauci, that's when it all ends.
Fuck Fauci, man.
As soon as they arrest him.
We'll see. I mean, I don't want it to take that long. I think,
like I said, the only reason why they haven't gone after Fauci is because they went so hard on him, defending him against Trump. They went so hard defending him against Trump that they shot themselves on the foot for any future criticism that he can have from the Democratic Party. When has that ever stopped
politicians from contradicting?
Well, they need to wait for the tide to turn. As soon as the tide turns, and they'll shift with it. But they got him for lying under oath. So they've already got him. I don't know why they don't just go after him. He's done.
I hope so. I'm so done with this whole situation.
And then we'll be fine. Get rid of that little bitch, and then we'll be all right.
I don't know what we will, because we still have this fear.
No,
but talk about it.
Let me tell you why. Because this is all they have to do. They need a scapegoat. They can sit there and say Fauci was wrong. He led us astray. He's the scapegoat. They should be doing it anyway, because the guy's been lying from day one. He should already be in prison. But he can be the scapegoat. They know he's wrong. They all know he's wrong. But they need as soon as they realize they can't get any more power out of this, and they can't sit there and bleed it. As soon as they bleed it dry, that's when they'll sit there and they'll shift, and then they'll put him hopefully in Guantanamo or somewhere. But that's
even if the Republicans got to him, he'd get a resignation, and he'd be able to keep all of his houses and his money, and he would just disappear out from public life.
Just gonna disappear.
Man, these homies hook each other all up, man. Like, I mean, look at the whole Epstein Ghislaine Maxwell thing.
Yeah.
They sealed the damn file so that we can't see who she was providing services to. She's the only person that was ever been convicted of sex trafficking to zero customers. Mm-hmm. Who's her customers? Crazy.
Yeah.
People are crazy.
The cover up is
don't expect any accountability, Pete. Don't expect any accountability.
Veronica, what do you think? How do we move forward? Or how have you been moving forward, or have seen other people move forward?
I don't know. I really don't. Because I think I'm where Santino said. I feel like I'm in the middle. Like, I get people who are, I don't want to say afraid, because then you guys will attack me.
We're not going to attack you.
I would.
I won't.
So I get that. But I also get, like, it's just, I really do feel like it's inevitable. And you do have to live with it. But, to each their own. Like, if you want to wear a mask and keep getting a booster every 3 days, fuck it. Sorry. Do it.
Language.
But, and then if you don't, and you just want to be hospitalized every 3 days, that's cool too. Do you. I don't know.
Really, you only have to get hospitalized once, because once you get it, you'll have antibodies, and it's just as good as being vaccinated. Like, it's just as good.
Yes.
After 6-7 months, you're still going to have those antibodies. I mean, they may be diminished, but they're still going to give you protection, like in terms of a hospital setting. The only people I can see getting like really severely messed up from this are people who are unvaccinated who never got it.
Right.
And it's a risk more than it is that they're going to get messed up. It's just they have a higher risk of having to be hospitalized or maybe having some of the more severe symptoms. But I'm just not seeing it. I'm not like believe this, guys. If there was an uptick in the amount of COVID deaths happening right now, we would hear about it.
Well, there is, but that's just because there's so many.
But
more
it's not significant.
It's not
like you know what I'm talking about. If
Yep.
this thing was wrecking 10% of the people that it was infecting, we'd hear about it. No, it's just infecting people. I mean, the it's probably a death rate is no different than any other cold or flu. People don't realize the common cold kills people all the time,
and the flu
all the time.
And one other thing about the unvaccinated thing that's been bothering me for the past year is how we're only focusing on vaccinated cases and how many people who are vaccinated who've gotten COVID and how many people are vaccinated. And it's like, at what point are we going to loop in all the unvaccinated people's data too? Because they have antibodies as well. So
what they don't want people to see, Shantae, is they don't want people to see.
I just want to, let me finish my point. I just wanted to say, like, if you're looking at a school, or let's just say your job is like 80% people are vaccinated, but the other 20% are unvaccinated, but they've had COVID. Those are still antibodies. It's like we're not counting the people who are unvaccinated and their antibodies. We're only looking at the people who are vaccinated. That's not the full picture. And that's what's annoying over the past years. We've learned that, if you're unvaccinated but you've had COVID, you're still pretty safe to be around, just as safe as a vaccinated person. Why are we excluding that? And that's been bothering me too. Like, when are we going to look at the full picture and say you're unvaccinated, but you've had it? Like you said, because if you haven't had it, you're at risk. You're at a bigger risk to going out or being hospitalized or whatever. But
they need a boogeyman.
What do you mean?
They need a boogeyman. They need somebody to blame. They blame the unvaccinated. That's all it is.
I thought this was funny. I thought this was a funny article that I saw. And it was from Oswego County, New York, because they had reported nearly 60% of those hospitalized are unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated. 60%, right? Okay. Nearly 60%. That's a funny way of saying 40% of those hospitalized are vaccinated.
And
that's why
COVID and yeah.
So
I mean, we know people who,
and this is like this is from Oswego County, New York. This is off of their site. So 60% of those hospitalizations, nearly 60%, are unvaccinated. But like 37, 38% are vaccinated.
Yeah.
So
it is less. I mean, that's a fact.
I mean,
less, and we know that. We know being unvaccinated is a risk.
I mean, that's almost like a margin of error, though. That's almost within margin of error.
Right. But also, if you've had COVID, I'm just so done with all of this. With the vaccinated versus unvaccinated. It just is not the full picture. It doesn't mean the same thing as who's had COVID and who has antibodies.
How many times do you see people who are dying of COVID and they're fully vaccinated? Like I've heard of people who are fully vax boosted, they get COVID and they die.
True. And some have been healthy.
The same roll of the dice.
Healthy people, not healthy people. Athletes have had a really weird reaction to the vaccine too, which if I were them, I'd be kind of right, because it's related to the heart and stuff. And I feel like if I were them, I'd be concerned, because I know athletes who've had the vaccine and the second shot takes some people out, and it took them way out, like beyond what we heard.
Yeah, they're all extremely healthy. They have good cardio and everything, because that's the big concern. There's a cardiovascular system with all this COVID stuff, and that seems to be the biggest catalyst of whether you're going to have a severe interaction with it or not.
Right.
I don't understand, and that's what kills me about it. Like.
So it's almost like, what can we do to make sure that if they get COVID, they're protected versus the vaccine. Like it's almost like something else should have been done because the vaccine's not helping, it's hurting. So like
They
it's
should
almost
just all
like they
lock
just
them into
got
the
COVID.
stadium, let them all get it.
I don't know, but it
Like
just doesn't seem right.
Well,
What'd
if
you
you
say,
look at the
Veronica?
NFL right now, go ahead, Veto. Sorry.
No, I was just a joke. I said like teachers. Just
Yeah. Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
are right.
that's how we're all doing it.
Essential workers, Veronica. And teachers aren't the only ones. Essential
Yeah,
workers
no.
in general are
Yeah.
always exposed all the time. Whether you work in
Mhm.
retail, whether you work in public transportation, whether you're you're just in a building or in manufacturing or in a warehouse, you're around hundreds of people a day. People are talking to you in your face and stuff. And I just feel like there's a lot of people exposed all the time, and it's not just teachers. And I know teachers have gotten the leeway or the exposure lately because of the schools, but it's essential workers. All essential workers have been
Mhm.
exposed, and so it's just one of those things where, yeah. Sorry, I went on a tangent. Peter, you can go.
No, I was letting you finish your tangent. I was
Sorry.
intrigued.
I didn't even finish it
Oh,
because I don't want to.
No,
Like,
no,
it goes
it's
on to another point.
no, it's just enough already. Just get out there, live your life. Stop. This should just be a friendly reminder to everybody. Stop listening to these politicians. They don't give a shit about you.
I agree.
And going back to what Vettel was saying, though, I mean, do you really know people who are happy with wearing masks, or are they just dealing with it?
I know germaphobes who are happy because they
Yeah,
would probably.
and people.
Yeah, but see, we're talking about a deficiency in their mental capacity at that point.
Or
So we're gonna go. But hear me out. So in that case, we're gonna go for every. You know what? Spiders. There's more people afraid of spiders than there are of germs. That's
so
true.
you know what?
It's
You know,
true.
I just thought-
Arachnophobia is like
okay, hold
top
on,
tier phobia. So spiders illegal. Can't have
hold
them in the
on,
house.
hold on, Tito. What'd you say? I think Veronica, you were about to say something too. Are you good?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and some people are really happy to stay home and be quarantining, or like not
Oh,
going
you mean
out
staying
and
home and not working?
no,
Introverts.
yeah, I was saying more so introverts, like reasons to say, oh no, I can't go out, or no, I don't want to go out. Like
That's true.
So from a different, I think it's been really negative on kids. So like, I never wear a mask. Well, we go to the store, my kids are used to wearing them. So I shame my kids. What are you wearing that for? What are you doing? Take that off.
So you don't have to shame them.
Yeah, sure I do.
Right.
Let me tell you why. It's because they're being told wear the mask. And I asked them, why are you wearing a mask? I don't know. So then why are you doing it? They're doing it because they're being told they should, but they have no idea why they're doing it.
Right.
So it takes away their critical thinking on asking the question, what the fuck am I wearing this for?
Be a good parent. Question everything.
No, yeah, that's the thing is that they're not, they're telling adults, us, that we're not allowed to question these things. What is it telling these kids?
Yeah, so that's my point. So like now I'll just look at them, or they'll be like, oh well, the sign says. I don't give a fuck what the sign says. I'm telling you, take the damn thing off. So like now, but they like it so much because now you don't have it on, right? So now, but they're so ingrained because of what other people are doing and saying. Same thing with my Trump hat, right? So I have my Trump hat, and they'd be like, and I don't wear hats often, but I wear it on occasion, and and they'd be like, well, people are going to stare. Who cares? Who's going to come up and say anything to me? Nobody's going to say shit. So what does it matter? But so they're ingrained, kids, to not necessarily be ashamed, but to be afraid to speak out against. Because if they do it with anything, it doesn't matter what topic you're talking about, it's easier for them to say nothing and to fall in line. So this is just another thing with the mask, just fall in line. And the kids have to fall in line, and they can't speak up and they can't say anything. But it's a long list of things that they're being told they can't speak up against.
And that's maybe where the training starts, and then you end up with Australia in 50 years.
You end up with a country full of commies, a whole bunch of weak-minded little wussies that they don't have the backbone to speak up against anybody, and then they're easily controlled. That's what happens.
But wait, so now they're following what you say, though.
But there's a reason why I say it.
But have you let them decide? Have you given them the tools to research for themselves.
So yes,
or even feel comfortable.
yeah.
Maybe they feel comfortable with
I
their
believe 100%
with wearing a
Peter gave him
mask.
so
Well,
here's
no.
so my kids.
I don't know about
So I believe what I believe. I said, but I also do the research into why I believe. My kids can speak up against it. It's tough for them to do because they a little bit intimidated to try to come to talk to me about stuff. But I will always. That's very fair, and I tell them it's fair. But I will always tell them I don't care if you can disagree with all you want, and you can question, but I want you to question it because I want you to do the research into it. Never come to me with this. Why is it this?
Mhm.
And it's a little simple stuff that I do. Like if they were like, hey, can I go here? Figure it out. Figure out how you're going to get there. What's it going to figure out all that? Do the research into it instead of just saying, Dad, can we go here? Can we figure out? Do you need to make a reservation? How much does it cost? What do you need? Does it make sense to do this or does it make sense to do that? I make them think critically.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying you can't wear a mask because if you wear a mask, that means you're a bitch. I'm not telling them that. Right?
I don't know.
But no, I'll tell. Okay, but why are you wearing a mask? What is it going to do for you?
Right.
Well, it's because they tell us we have to. That's not good enough reason. It's just not.
So let me ask you, Pete. Do they like the mask or no?
No, especially when they're playing sports.
I can see that being annoying.
So like with the basketball, and for the district, we had the little pre-meeting, whatever, for the basketball for the high school, and they came out. The AD came out and said, hey, they said when that if the refs don't say anything, the girls have to have a mask on, but they don't have to covering their face. And a lot of parents are cheering, the students are cheering. How the fuck are you playing with a mask on? And everybody knows as soon as it gets wet, it's actually more dangerous for the girls because they're just catching all these damn germs in their face and they're inhaling it.
That
But
don't make no sense.
it doesn't. But so they don't like wearing it. They're used to it now. And they're told, oh, you're going to save somebody's life, even though it's not saving anybody's life. These masks are useless.
Over time, our kids are gonna start having ears like this from these masks. I'm not joking.
Hopefully, it doesn't last that long.
This is how this happens.
Okay, guys. So, final thoughts on this topic.
I'll go first, and I'll just leave it alone. I was right. You guys should just listen to me from the beginning, and we wouldn't be in this situation right now. That's all I had.
Veronica,
I
would say, no, he's not right.
Jonte, pull the clip of the old videos.
Each their own, I say.
To each their own. Okay, so Tito,
I'm gonna say I was right as well, Peter. All the stuff, all the hate that I got over the last 2 years, like it's right in front of everybody's face, and I hope everybody sees it. They call me vindictive. Y'all made your beds. Lay in it.
I'm more in the middle. I liked to track the data as we went and tried to follow along and make my own decisions versus listening to Fauci and others. And so, I kind of agree with Veronica about like just to each his own, because I was not about to yell at someone to get vaccinated and do what I was doing. I feel like we made the best decisions for us and our family, and everyone else should have done the same thing. And like you said, this is America, so make your own decisions. And I don't like how these mandates are starting to happen. I don't think they make any sense. So live your life. That's my final thought. Live your life. Stop being afraid of COVID. Stop being afraid to say the word COVID. And if you get it, that's okay. If you're vaccinated and you're prepared, that's okay. And if you chose to be unvaccinated, you already have probably accepted what goes along with that. So I'm not trying to make any decisions for you either. But yeah, live your life.
And mandates. And all mandates.
And all mandates.
And all mandates.
Stop giving these businesses that are following that mandate your business so that it hurts them. And go outside of these areas that are requiring it, because it's not okay if you disagree with it. Make a stand.
Shantae, one parting thing. Can you switch the we're discussing live living with COVID to fire Fauci or arrest Fauci now? Can you do that for me? Or I don't have access right now.
You know I'm going to switch it to. Thank you for joining. Check out our website, ChitChatChill.com. We also have some merchandise on there on the shop, and we also have this in podcast form, which will be available at the same time as this video. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for joining.